On another subject, while the local economy has been showing signs of improvement, 1 in 10 San Diegans is still unemployed. Will things continue to improve, or are we headed for a double-dip recession? We asked Alan Ginn, author of the USD Index of Leading Economic Indicators, to give us his outlook for San Diego. Here's what he said.
There's concern at the national level that we're going to have what economists call a double-dip recession, where the economy takes a downturn again. But I think that we'll be able to avoid that here in San Diego. I think we're well positioned in terms of the sectors of the economy that we're emphasizing. And I think that'll help us both in the short term and in the long term. Any sort of rebound in consumer confidence is important because consumer spending is typically 2/3 of economic activity. So what we're going to need then is for the consumer to come back in order to create some jobs in areas like retailing and the restaurant industry. That'll help us here in San Diego.
John, how important is consumer confidence to our overall economic health?
Well, consumer confidence is a driving factor because without it, people are not spending, they're not going into the marketplace, and if they're not spending, then suppliers have no need for new supplies, they have no need to rehire people who've been laid off, and so it's a ripple effect. And I think it's a very important element that he mentions here. We don't see consumer confidence rising right now. People are still uncertain because of the recession, because they're anticipating this next phase. The stimulus has not done what it was hoped it would do. And we're looking at San Diego. He's saying we should be encouraged because we see some moderate increase, building permits, more advertising for jobs, unemployment down at least a little in terms of San Diego County. And so maybe those things are the things that he sees as stimulating the confidence, which we don't have right now.
What do you think of Alan Ginn's assessment of what might be called a double-dip recession happening in San Diego? You heard what John said.
Yeah, you know, he's an economist and knows a lot about these things, so I'm glad to hear him having a sort of hopeful notion for San Diego. You know, I do know there's been a lot of sort of sustained good news on the housing front, at least if you consider it good news to have housing values going up, you know, there are good signs, and I'm hopeful they'll be sustained. A lot of it does feel a little lurching. You know, good news this week, bad news the next week. The stock market, you know, obviously not having a big boost this week, but you know, then there's good news, and hopefully that'll be sustained somehow.
So there we have a slight optimistic note from Ricky Young.
I'm doing what I can for the consumer confidence. So.
John, what are some of the indicators that we should still be concerned about? I'm going to take the other side of it.
Well, I think we still have to be concerned about unemployment. Because that is a major factor. In San Diego County, we still have a large contingency of homeless people, and locally we have now a mayor talking about possible taxes. We had a study come out from the county grand jury recently that talked about the need to restructure our financing here. All of these things come into play, and it's not just a beachfront community. So while it looks good on the one end, we have a lot of people out there that are hurting, that are without jobs. Our schools are now being impacted, greater cuts expected, 12 through K, teacher layoffs. And so it's kind of hard to be continuously upbeat when you see these things that are about to become realities.
And yet the local economy might be stimulated by some government projects. The San Diego City Council's talking about a new city hall. A downtown library has already been approved, and there's going to be groundbreaking. What effect will that?
There's always room for surprises, and this week the city actually moved forward with this $185 million downtown library, and one of their big issues was that it would create jobs. There's been a lot of rhetoric at City Hall in the time I've been here about, you know, we're in something like a depression, and during the depression there were a lot of big public works projects, and so now they're moving forward with the library, and pretty soon we'll know whether they're going to move forward with a new City Hall, which might be, you know, a little less popular an idea with the public, but, you know, that could create some jobs. And as John notes, there's also talk of a tax increase, a sales tax increase. You know, and obviously that can have a depressive effect on the economy, but at the same time, it's designed, I think, to be part of a package that would deal with the city's ongoing structural deficit, they call it, where they simply have less revenue than they have expenses. And, you know, if they fix that, presumably that could have some impact on improving the city.
And well, I'd love to have you respond, John, but our time is up. There are jobs and then there are jobs. We'll talk about it next time around.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Ricky Young, John Warren.
Thank you, Gloria.